Council members Erpenbach,
Here.
Jameson,
Here.
Karski,
Here.
Kiley,
Here.
Rolfing, Staggers,
Present.
Anderson,
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Well, again, good evening and welcome everybody to our Sioux Falls City Council meeting. We're going to begin our meeting as we customarily do with our invocation, and we're going to follow that with immediately with a Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm going to introduce to us Pastor Brett Best of Emmanuel Baptist Church for our invocation. If we'd all stand and stay standing then for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. The last time I was here, I was a candidate for the office of pastor at Emmanuel Baptist, and since then, I've been hired to be the pastor at Emmanuel Baptist, where I'm proud and happy to say that right now they're having Vacation Bible School with a set of children that are African American immigrants and Native Americans and Euro-Americans. So we have a small group, but a diverse group, and I'm very proud of all of them, very happy about that, and proud to be here in Sioux Falls. Thank you. Let us pray. To our Creator, we offer unceasing thanks for His creative activity. Our city is graced by all shades of green and an artist's palette of all hues. In spring, life awakens and takes on its full flower. We are grateful. We are also grateful for those who serve our city with leadership and pray for your empowering for everyone at this meeting. Let politics no longer be a byword, but become, through repeated experiences of civility, unity, and productivity, a word that stands for our cooperation to solve our shared problems, to protect our weakest citizens, and to ally ourselves with the positive influences our community possesses. With your divine help and in the hour of our greatest opportunity, we pray to you. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Council, let us begin our meeting with our consent agenda.
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Jameson.
We have a motion to approve our consent agenda and a second. Comments? Councilor Staggers?
Yeah, I'd just like to pull one item, and that's on the community development core facade revitalization, $105,000.
So we're going to pull the core facade revitalization under community development. That'll get moved to our regular agenda. Other comments? All righty. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
That passes on a vote of 7-0. Thank you. And move on to our regular agenda. Council?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Kiley.
We have a motion by Councilor Erpenbach, a second by Councilor Kiley to approve our consent agenda. Comments? Roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
That passes by a vote of 7-0 also. We have now reached the stage of our council meeting where we take input from the public. We ask anybody that would like to address the council to please limit it to 5 minutes, and to, if it is an agenda item that will be discussed this evening, we prefer to keep the comments at that time of the agenda item. So if anybody would like to address the council, please step forward and state your name, please, for us. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Brachtelsbauer, and I appreciate this chance to talk to you. I was at the library, and it was a Sunday, and guess what? It wasn't open, but there were just so many people there that I thought it would be good for you to know that and to have a specific request that we have summer hours at the library downtown. You could even start with just that one library. And I went there to turn in a book and to take out a book and to meet a friend. And I was able to turn in the book, of course, but during about 45 minutes while I waited for my friend, there were so many people who came, lots and lots. I was just amazed, so many people. I thought, this is really good use of public library on Sunday afternoon. But trouble was, it wasn't open because this is June now. So I just wanted to put in a request that we have summer hours, at least that one library, and it's only like 1 to 5 for 3 months, so I don't think it would break the city budget, and it would be a good thing to try, and it would encourage reading and other worthwhile activities that go on at libraries. We have wonderful facility. It's a beautiful new library, and I think that what we should think most is how we can encourage the use of the library instead of discouraging the use of the library. There were even children there who said they were there because they wanted to read. And I thought, here we are in a city wanting to encourage young readers. And that's something that we, of course, need to spend time thinking about, is how to make life better for the children of our city, as well as how to improve access for everyone to the facilities of the city. So this is my request tonight, that you have library hours during the summer and not just 9 months of the year. And I think we have some of our young readers here who would like to talk to you.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. Will you tell us your name, please?
I'm Rashida Muhammad.
Welcome.
I was at the library on Sunday because I really love to read. That's my favorite thing. And I usually come on Sundays because that's when I, get to read with others. So, when I was at school, I would always read every single time. And then my teacher would always say I was really good. And then so over this, when school finished, she told me to keep up reading. So I decided to go in the library on Sundays. So I was reading. Then when it was June and there was no no library. So I didn't know what to do. So I just came. So I just wanted you guys to open it on Sundays.
Great comments. Thank you. Thank you. Is somebody else? No? Okay. Takes a lot of courage to come up here, and I admire that. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask Jim David, our legislative and operations rep, to maybe bring that to one of our committees for discussion. Thank you, Jim. Welcome.
Hello, Scott Erisman, Sioux Falls. Well, I'm sure that the indoor pool will probably be open on Sundays, so we could probably afford to open the libraries on Sundays too. Just thought I'd point that out. I was reading a letter to the editor today and thought to myself that I should probably come and thank the council or the clerk's office. I don't know who is responsible for it. But allowing the Sioux Falls Free Thinkers to come and do an invocation. In the letter to the editor today, there was a guy who was confused as to why the invocation got started. Benjamin Franklin, if you want to be reminded, was a deist. Deists don't believe in religion. They believe in a higher power. He wasn't a Christian. He was the one that came up with the idea of the invocation. When he was asked about it throughout his life, he said, it's because I wanted everyone to become unified in a peaceful manner before we started meetings. It had nothing to do with religion or Christianity. And so I'd like to thank the council and the clerk's office for allowing someone who is not a Christian or of a religious sector to come and do the invocation. That was the real intent of why we do it. Now, I noticed today, well, Siri or whatever you call it, wasn't working again today online, and so I didn't get to watch the whole meeting. The Pavilion did their annual report, and I'm really concerned from reading the story today that the Visual Arts Center charging admission is a failed experiment. I predicted when they did close it that it was going to be a failed experiment. It only didn't raise very much money, and it's actually breaking the promise to the voters. I was here, I voted for the pavilion. The Visual Arts Center was to remain free. The Great Hall and the Cinedome and other entities within the pavilion were supposed to bring in enough money so the Visual Arts Center could remain free. You got to realize something. A lot of people aren't going to go out and seek art when they go into that building if they're there for some other reason. But if it's free, they might walk through there. Charging admission to someone who is not really interested in art, they're not going to pay it. I found it laughable in the story today that 75% of the people who visited the Visual Arts Center over the past year did it on the free days, which is only 5 days out of the month. So that kind of tells you that people want a free visual arts center. And I don't know what kind of power the council has over telling the board at the pavilion what to do, but I do know that you have the power of the purse. And you can put conditions on a subsidy that you give to them every year, and you can request to them that they open the Visual Arts Center for free. Now, I understand that big exhibits do need money, and you should probably charge admission to them because people will pay it. But for local and regional artists, that doesn't make any sense. Your attendance went way down. It went down 75% once you started, charging admission. We as taxpayers pay for that building through maintenance, through the CIP. We do an entertainment tax subsidy. We do federal grants that comes from our tax dollars. We should have at least something in the building we can walk in there besides the bathrooms that we can use for free. And like I said, you have the power of the purse, and you can ask the pavilion to change their mind on the Visual Arts Center being free. The Institute of Art in Minneapolis, a large facility, their permanent collection, one room, is probably worth more than the whole entire permanent collection of the Washington Pavilion. And if they can have a free art center, I'm sure Sioux Falls can probably figure it out too. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschman. Welcome.
What?
Welcome.
What, something going on? Someone else coming up?
Oh, your
Teresa
turn.
Staley, Sioux Falls, and I'm here tonight. Do you all have the handout that I passed out? I'm here to talk about the vote that happened last Tuesday. I was a superintendent at St. Mark's Lutheran. This is the second time I've had that position there. And there was great voter confusion at our center, and I've heard through the grapevine it was happening throughout our community. And as I have on this handout, there were many causes for this, but I think the city election played into this voter confusion, and this has been happening for years. At St. Mark's Lutheran, we had a constant stream of residents who had been longtime users of that location. And when they came in, we did not have their names in our book. So I called down to the auditor's office, and I was told that these people who had been voting there for years had been reassigned to places like Trinity Baptist, O'Gorman, Asbury Methodist, and the Center for Active Generations. These voters had never been notified about this change. Others came in and thought that it was the voting center concept that we had just used on April 8th for the city election, and that they could go anywhere. And people were confused about what anywhere is. And at the end of the day, we need to have better communication to people before every election about where they're going to go. As I've been just talking with Bob Litz, and I want to say for the record, I'm not trying to throw Bob under the bus. He has been very helpful, and he's trying to do the best he can with his part of this voting process. But we have the school district and we have the city involved as well. And we need to take the guesswork out of this for the future. We will never have a consistent, stable voting location for all people. Because of what I mentioned, each governmental entity wants to do it their own way. Voting centers, consolidation, There's a financial constraint with the county. They can't afford all the e-poll books. So you're all working separately. And we're growing. So what works today for a location isn't going to work in 5 or 10 years. So I'm thinking, what can we do to help? And I'm an activist, and I'm willing to put my time and my money in to helping the citizens get where they need to be. And what came to me is a mailing to all registered voters before every election and tell them where they're voting. Now, this year, my place moved from Horace Mann to Hope Lutheran, and Bob Litz sent out a little card, similar to what we would get for our driver's license renewal, and told me where I voted. It was in my hand, I had it. A lot of people, of course, don't get that. And I believe there's like 88 to 90,000 registered voters in Sioux Falls. So it would be a matter of sending that out every time we had an election. If there's a voting center, we get that before the election. These are the places you can go. We have it in our hand. We cannot push the burden for informing our citizens on the media, expecting TV, Argus Leader, Internet. We can't expect them to get the message to everybody. And I do believe that if we had a vote, if we put that up to a public vote and said, hey people, are you willing to spend extra money to get a mailing out to tell you where to vote, they would say yes. This has been a rising frustration level through the years. So that's my first thing that I really want us to be looking at. And I talked to the county this morning about it. They were very open to sending out this mailing. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was the regard I have for these people who work at the polling sites. And for years I have voted at Horace Mann. I come in there, I see my neighbors, they're senior citizens, and I'm thinking, oh, they're having coffee and coming and going. Wrong. These people go an hour beforehand, and then that morning of the election, they're there at 6 in the morning, and they're there till 7 at night, and they cannot leave. And oftentimes there's no breaks involved. 13-hour day. But at the end of that 13 hours, then they are expected to do the takedown, manual labor, moving chairs, taking the voting machine, the voting booths down, the auto mark. It's this heavy thing that they have to lift. At my center, we had people with bad backs, and we're just exhausted, and then they're doing the manual labor. I know, and I talked with some people who were involved with the last city election, and it was the same format. So what I'm suggesting is that to make this easier to get people to work at the polls in the future, that we would consider a split shift, maybe 6 hours at a time instead of 13, and also getting a team of younger people to come in at the end and do the manual cleanup. Because what we really want from these people working is to protect the sanctity of the vote and to facilitate people getting in. And just going back to the mailing, also, if you mailed out to all the registered voters, I think that you would perk them and inform them that this election's coming up, get out there and participate, because we want to have a better turnout than 20%. We can do better than that in Sioux Falls. So that's my issue tonight. I wanted to say this now, even though we probably I don't think we have another election for 2 years, but it's something that we need to really be considering. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, welcome.
Hello. My name is Dan Daly. I'm a resident of Sioux Falls. Wanted to add a little bit to what Teresa had to say. My mother worked polls from 6 in the morning until 8 p.m. She's 82 years old. That speaks for itself. I wanted to discuss a few things. First of all, actually I've got several topics. I'll be brief. I won't take a lot of your time. The construction of the indoor swim center at Spellerberg, I'd like to have that postponed for 4 years. And the reason being all the construction proposed along 41st Street and 26th Street, it's going to paralyze the VA hospital, and I don't think there needs to be construction at Spellerberg at the same time. I've issued some handouts and I've gone into a full discussion, and you can certainly review that. And I have handouts for the audience as well that I'd like to pass out if you don't mind. Okay. I'm a veterans advocate. I don't necessarily support city government for obvious reasons, I think everyone knows. You kept me in court for 8 years, and I went to state Supreme Court. Cost me $50,000 to prove your government unconstitutional. You've not edited that. You're still not constitutional. You do not allow citizens access to the courts. I've made it my business going around to people and giving them advice, not legal advice, that how they can get out of the citation process. It's very easy, very easy. The city can't take anyone to court because you don't allow appeals. And the only way that you can incite action is with fines collection or liens or court action. You need court action, and you don't have it. You need to change that. I don't know what the holdup is. It's really modifying the old code. The codes were renumbered, the text was changed, but you're still unconstitutional government. And okay, otherwise, I'm a combat vet. My opinion is that the city of Sioux Falls is not veteran friendly. Understandable, not everyone on the council is a veteran. And I'd like to, well, actually, I'm lobbying, I'm going to visit congressmen and see if I can get, I realize you're not going to stop Spellerberg. There's no way for citizens to stop that. That was evident in the vote. We had no choice whether we wanted Spellerberg or an indoor pool or whatever. We were going to have a pool shoved down our throat of some kind. But I think that we don't need the VA hospital, well, I call it Broken Arrow. You're infringing upon them so that access is a problem. If you could stall the swim center for 4 years, I'm not opposed to the swim center. Actually, I believe that the VA hospital should be relocated. It's built in 1949. It's got problems with asbestos, and there's a new, City of Brandon is lobbying for a VA nursing home, and I'm going to work with the mayor there. Again, I'm not a patriot of this city, although I live here. But I think that if the new nursing home and another new VA in a government complex out on the east side of Brandon is a good idea. And that's one of the things I'm lobbying for. The old VA facility probably has no use. You can tear it down and build a Walmart. Sorry. The other thing I wanted to say is city actions are unenforceable. I mentioned that. Citation, performance, liens. One of these handouts gives all of the detail, all of the cases, cites codified laws, why your government is unconstitutional. It needs to change. And I think, too, that city debt's a problem. It's headed towards insolvency. Doesn't affect me. Doesn't affect most citizens because there's a sales tax base and a little bit of property tax. If I were a city employee, I'd be worried about my retirement and whether I'm going to have a job in the future. And this sort of thing is happening across the country. It's the next financial crisis. It's happening throughout California. The baby boomer money has traveled in many directions. It headed into municipal bonds, and they're going out to everyone. That is the next insolvency. Doesn't hurt for the city to take bankruptcy. I mean, you can get all this money in, you can use it, but end result, when you're in bankruptcy, you're going to have to cut, and you're going to have to be really slender. You should probably start preparing for that. You're $400 million right now, you're probably going to be $1 billion by 2018. There's just too many things under construction. We're growing, that's true. That's true. And the money might be there. But it just seems a little careless. And it's going the wrong directions. It's not going to infrastructure. It's going to public entertainment facilities, which are necessary. They should have been paid attention to a long time ago. But the city's growing, and infrastructure is more important. Am I welcome to pass these out?
We are almost at 6 minutes, Mr. Daly, and
I'm
we
sorry.
try to limit this to 5 minutes. If you'd like to make them available for the council, that would be fine.
I've made them available for the council. Can I pass them out to the audience?
You can put them on the table right there, and anybody who
Great.
would like one can
Great.
is sure
That works.
welcome to pick them up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for the extra minute.
Mr. Chair,
Sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
could I make a brief comment to Mr. Daly? Just a very brief one.
You're welcome to that, Counselor Staggers.
Mr. Daly, first of all, I'd like to apologize because you gave me some handouts to give to the city council members, and I put that very securely in my car, and then, well, they're still there, very secure in my car. I'm very sorry I didn't
That's
get
one
this
of the
distributed.
handouts I gave you.
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor Staggers. Anybody else that would like to address the council today? Welcome, sir.
Hi. My name is Don Bechtel. I came to Sioux Falls when there was 30,000 people. And I like Sioux Falls. And I know a lot of you people on the council. And what I'm really upset about is this garbage deal. I'm what the mayor calls, well, I'm not, but he refers to some of us as slumlords. Now, if he referred to some other people like that, they'd be awful mad. I don't care. But this ordinance was putting your garbage cans inside and then drag them out. I had a garbage man come in my garage, pick it up and take it out and dump it. If I had to do it half the time, I'd forget it. And I'm referring more to the apartments. I'd like to know, every day you read about homeless people. And I'd like to know who's going to drag them garbage cans out from behind the house up to the garbage can the day he comes. We had an ordinance where we had to build a fence and a bin and what have you, and that wasn't all that bad, but then people come along just kind of throw it over the top. They never bothered to throw it in there, so it didn't help a thing. And this moving these garbage cans, I don't think they should be laying out in the front of the house, maybe. But if you haven't got no place else to put it, it should be stricken. There ain't no landlord comes out and drags that stuff out there. It's the people that live there. And I don't believe, and I'm not very smart, but I know, I've read the Constitution, and you guys cannot levy this fine like you're doing legally. I don't know if I wouldn't spend no $50,000 to prove it. But I read this in Argus Leader, and I don't believe everything they write either. But this Mr. Lubers, he writes a letter here. He said, offenders wouldn't be subject to any fines under the proposed ordinances. He said they'd send a letter. Well, I'll tell you what comes after that letter. Comes a letter telling you, $100 because you didn't do it right away. And I had a situation like that. I was out of town. I came back in. The day I come back in, I had a fine for $100. At first I knew about it. And I took care of the problem immediately. As far as I know, that $100 fine's still there. It'll stay there forever. I don't care. But it's illegal the way they done it. And he shouldn't be telling us they would, no fines. They shouldn't be writing, and maybe he didn't, but the paper did, that they'd send a letter and notifying the property owner. Well, pretty soon you're going to get a letter wanting $100. Then if you don't like it, you can spend $50 to get out to talk to somebody about it. That's not right. And I think you ought to forget about, unless you have an ordinance, one ordinance should be changed, and it isn't here. But the one that fines a landlord for the guy leaving his car set there that rents it, or making a mess and throwing the stuff around there, the landlord shouldn't be fined for that. That's like somebody driving your car and gets picked up for speed, and you can't fine the guy that owns the car because he wasn't driving it. That's wrong. And I do know right from wrong, and I'll have to tell you this Just adding more on there. They want no homeless people. All this extra money, the landlord's going to charge the people that are renting it. It's going to cause more homeless people. I just had, not too long ago, I had a guy hanging around there partying. I asked him to leave. And after I heard all the profanity I've ever heard in my life from him, and I called the police, and they told me, well, somebody invited him in. You can't do nothing with him. Well, he informed me that I keep on his case. He said he'll make sure that I don't have no apartments to rent. And I never thought much about it. But I read in the paper a few weeks later, somebody lit a fire over on the east side in the hallway. I don't know if it was him. I don't know who it was. They don't know. But I never thought of that. And here, 3rd of June, he knocked the big picture window out. He's in jail. They did get him. And I wrote a letter, run around, got some estimates. That's in excess of $1,000. And hopefully that they make restitution, but so far I've never got any. But putting this garbage stuff, I've got some apartments. There ain't no place that I can put them except where they're at. Does that mean you make about 10 homeless families or pay $100 every time you get a letter? It's not right. If the garbage man would go down behind the building, pull them up the hill, I wouldn't care too much. It costs more money, the renters would pay more. That's just the way the world runs. And
Mr. Bechtel, we're nearing 6 minutes again, so
all right.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you. It will be a first reading tonight, and it will get more discussion at a second reading, and maybe even more discussion beyond that before the council votes on it.
Send a few fines to a couple more people around town, you'll probably get a lot of it.
Well,
let me ask you one more question.
Yes, sir.
This Trent Lubers, what is his title of his job? Is he here?
Anybody help me out? What's Trent's?
For what? Public Works, huh? Who hires him? How does he get elected? You do? Huh?
Mr. Bechtel, we're getting a little out of order here. We're going to have to continue with our meeting.
Can I find out who hires him? I'd like to know.
He's an employee of the city, Mr. Bechtel. Thank you. All righty, any other input from the public? Welcome.
Welcome. I'm Carol Anderson, and I like Sioux Falls. I am a landlord as well, and a big taxpayer, I feel. And listening to Mr. Bechtel here, he kind of turned my crank, because we heard nothing all winter about homeless people. I did one of those appeals, and it cost $50, and you should have saw the monkey show I went through. They said, ma'am, you can't speak till you're addressed. They showed pictures that were obsolete. I said, what am I paying this $50 for? Then I got $300 fine from the city because there was pit bulls in there. And my concern is, I don't know, does Mayor Huther attend these meetings going forward, Sioux Falls?
Oh, yes, he's just not
Well,
here
he
tonight.
should be here tonight. He promised me 2 years ago that he would have monthly meetings with the landlords. And he has never had one. Maybe he got higher positioned. Maybe he thinks we're slumlords. But I know for a fact that I get 25 calls a week and somebody wants a place to live. And once we get them in there, the nightmare begins. Well, I come from a farm. I'm a farm girl. They have subsidies for farmers, and for landlords, they have a kick in the teeth. And most of the landlords are getting older, and none of the young people want to approach it. Now, I'm heading towards 70. My husband died, and I'm thinking to myself, Carol, can you do this? Yes, Carol, you can do it. You're a can-do person. But how long? How long are we going to go on for? So what we want is something proposed to help these landlords. The court system, I evicted someone in January, got her out in May, and there was pit bulls in there. And believe me, we went through a major stabbing in my life and my husband's, and we almost died. And we're supposed to tackle pit bulls and fines and no rent and damage. We need to get on track with landlords here, and they are very important people. And besides that, look at the taxes we pay. I mean, we're paying all of your wages. And the houses that we pay on are higher than our own homes because we're supposedly investors. Well, that's wrong too. So I think it's time to address, and I speak for a lot of landlords here. You know how many people I talk to that are landlords that won't come up here and talk? Well, I will. And we need to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, it was some very lively discussion. We appreciate all the input tonight, mostly positive, and we thank you for keeping it that way. We are going to move on to our unfinished business, I guess Councilor Stagger's item with the core facade revitalization. Councilor Staggers.
Yes, I talked earlier today with somebody who called me about this from the city, and I told them not to come tonight because I think most of us on the council know what this is all about. This is a program that we have for the downtown area to give to businesses who are refurbishing their buildings and so forth. Here, this one deals with $105,000 going to the YMCA because of the work they're doing on their building right now. And I think this is a program that we should actually get rid of. This is taxpayer money. Basically, it's free money going to businesses to help refurbish their building. And when I take a look at the YMCA, $105,000, I don't think the facade's even worth $105,000 for us to invest in. So I would encourage you to vote against this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Staggers. Any other comments?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
We have a motion to approve.
Second, Jameson.
We have a second from Councilor Jameson. Any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Staggers?
No.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
That motion has passed at a vote of 7-0.
No,
And
6-1.
6-1. Thank you very much, Councilor Erpenbach. I appreciate that. And we will now move on to our regular agenda. And that would be item number 19.
Item 19 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 57, Garbage and Recycling, to increase rates at the landfill in Section 57.047.
Mr. Cotter, welcome.
Thank you, Council Chair and Council members. Our team is here to answer your questions tonight. Since there's a number of items that deal with the rate reviews, just some setup comments to start with. I want you to know that this has been a collaborative effort between Public Works and the finance team, and for certain elements of the review, we've also enlisted AE2S. We did talk about that for a period of time. AE2S did all the rate analysis, and this was our first year that we only brought them on as advisors, a QC check, and it worked out very good. And so now we've got that brain trust and those working models inside Public Works and Finance, and it's really been a good transition. We've still heavily used them in the storm drainage utility, just with the amount of work and first models that were brought to you last week. The presentation that took place last Tuesday on June 3rd presented the key utilities operational costs and the capital costs, and now with technology, all those presentations, the streaming of the presentations available, and also one of the questions that came from Councilor Jameson was, what are some of the steps our customers can take to help them further reduce their costs? We took all that information and created a web page on Public Works to put it all in one location. It's under Public Works, under rate reviews, and hopefully that's kind of a one-stop shop for anyone that has questions regarding the respective rates. First one is for landfill, and let me take you through that one to start with. Okay, so our approach tonight is, since we did do a very detailed presentation, we've rolled up really the effect on a typical residential customer and have a very similar slide that as we're talking to that specific utility or function, that will try to just highlight what the typical cost is, whether it's on a monthly basis or an annual basis for that respective customer. So the first one tonight is sanitary landfill. This is a 2-year rate model so effectively to set rates for 2015 and 2016. When you look at a typical hauler's cost to pick up your waste from your house, that's typically about $22.50. About 30% of that cost is normally equated to the tipping fee as they bring it across the scales of the landfill. And so if we take 30% of the $22.50 and then elevate the increase, which is about 3%, it'll equate to an average cost impact of about 19 cents per month on the landfill cost. And the impact on 2016, we are not recommending a rate increase for the 2016, and we would ask for your support. That's the first reading.
Questions from the council? Council Staggers.
Mark, I asked this question last week, and I guess I'm not really clear about the answer. The difference between C&D and MSW. With the MSW, we're paying, as residents and so forth, we're paying more per ton than developers and contractors are paying for their waste. But then you also add the fact that all the waste from residents, a lot of that becomes methane, and then we also get money for the methane that we produce there. To me, it seems like that the C&D should be more than the MSW. I mean, we have a lot of residents paying it, and then the city's also getting the methane gas produced, making lots of money off of that. We don't have the C&D producing the methane gas. It's what the citizens produce and waste. So it would seem to me that should be cheaper than the C&D. Can you say something about that?
I can attempt to. It's probably a larger debate. Essentially, we look at anything that comes in that we can sell at the landfill as a byproduct. The methane gas just happens to be the largest byproduct that we sell. But we also have appliances. When we extract the Freon, we have large metal sales that come out. And we also in that same area have tires. And so there's a number of byproducts that ultimately at the landfill that we capture what we can get for revenue, and ultimately that reduces the revenue adequacy that we need to get from the haulers. The other piece of it is just when we look at cost of service to handle MSW or handle C&D, it's vastly different. And every time we've tried to calibrate these financial models, we want to make sure that they're as reflective of our cost as possible. We also don't want to create a situation where it is less money for us to bury C&D. There's less equipment on that working face. There's less regulations. On the other side, we don't want to create a situation where, say, MSW is at $40 a ton and C&D is at $20, because then we're going to start seeing a lot of cross-contamination of household waste in those construction dumpsters to just take advantage of the lower cost. And so we've recognized that C&D costs less to handle. That's why it's about $2 a ton less than MSW. And we've just looked at the methane gas sales, which I think it's a great story. It's been a great effort that this city council took forward, that we started to sell landfill gas in 2009. We ultimately sell about $200,000 worth of landfill gas a month. And so it's been a great partnership for the city, but ultimately we don't carve off reducing the MSW cost because of that. It's a revenue source, it's a byproduct, and ultimately it's helped keep all the costs at the landfill down lower.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I have one, if I could, Mark.
Yes.
The money that's generated by the methane sales, does that stay in the enterprise fund?
100%.
100%?
Yes.
Keeps the cost down. Thank you.
That's right.
Okay, this is a first reading, so we do not take public input, and what I'm looking for from the council is a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, June 17th at 7 o'clock p.m.
So move, Anderson.
Second, Erpenbach.
I have a motion and a second. I need a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. Item number 20, please.
Item 20 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 57, Garbage and Recycling, Subchapter Collection Regulations.
All right. Well, thank you. There's been obviously some discussion, some debate since we presented on this item last Tuesday. I think I would like you to know that this is aggregated up from one of our key citizens that's on the Solid Waste Planning Board. What are some of those key issues that we need to address as a city? What's been difficult for our customers to potentially understand? A subcommittee tackled this. Ultimately, I think really took a look at the ordinance, found a way to make it less restrictive, try to make it more clear, and came up with really three key things. The current ordinance, most of it's just been strengthened language, but there's a red line overstrike that says, in an inconspicuous place. One of the challenges that we have is, if we have an ordinance that's not sufficiently explicit to inform those who need to understand them, then it also makes it hard for our teams when we get questions from customers to try to enforce it. It wasn't too long ago where we've obviously heard comments over time, but the picture of the property owner that looked across the street and seen 1 to 2 to 3 large garbage cans in front of every residential unit across the street just resonated that this is getting to be a bigger and bigger issue across our city. The cans are getting larger. We're fortunate that people are recycling more, and so I, for one, have 2 large recycling bins at my place, and so we understand that this item needs to really be taken up and discussed. When we look at the word inconspicuous, we talked with Diane Best, our attorney, today, and just to really try to understand what that definition is. And the current language of inconspicuous is not readily noticeable. So today the language in the ordinance says that a garbage and recycling container shall be kept in an inconspicuous place. Well, that's somewhat that's somewhat subjective. So what this team did was, let's try to make this clearer, but then let's also understand that there's probably going to be some exceptions, some waivers that's needed to do it. And so that line was struck, and it now reads, the garbage and recycling containers shall be kept inside, beside, behind a structure, or in a screened or enclosed area that's reasonably accessible to a licensed garbage hauler. It already always said that it could be beside or behind a structure. And so I understand that there's going to be more questions, but we wanted to just make sure that the council was aware that this is really the result of trying to make an ordinance less restrictive and ultimately give us the ability to, if there's a disability that needs to be accommodated. We heard a question that came in. We've gotten one question into the Public Works office in the last week, that we've got a house that's got very steep terrain, and so we haven't gone out and done that inspection since it just came in the last couple of days. But ultimately, we know that there's going to be some constraints that we're going to need to work with. Then we can provide a waiver. Other than that, we're really just trying to provide clarity on where people can put their containers. The other ones I think are fairly straightforward. No container should be larger than 125 gallons for a single family residential property, and then to address the time frame for C&D roll-off facilities, 30 days max or a valid building permit. And so this did go to the Solid Waste Planning Board, had 5 yes, 3 no, and 3 abstained. Okay, so questions?
Questions from the council. Councilor Staggers.
Yes, Mark, can you tell us who voted which way on the solid waste board?
I don't have that with me, but I can, if I understand this is only the first reading, we can certainly bring that back.
Yeah, because, well, can you tell me how many city officials are on that board?
I believe we've got 3 representatives on the board. Is that correct, Dave? Yeah, we have 3, and I believe the board is made up of about 14 people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a relatively large board for a city board. And one of the key factors is we want to make sure that the counties, the 5 counties that are served, each have a representative. There's citizen involvement, so we want to make sure that what the ordinance today provides for the number of citizens, and then also that the recycling industry is represented as well.
Can I just speculate a little bit?
Sure.
That the 5 people that voted in favor of this were city officials and some citizens, and no waste haulers voted for it. Am I right or wrong? Or do you remember?
I don't. I wasn't at that particular meeting, but we can certainly follow up on who voted in which way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Other questions? Councilor Erickson.
And this may be a little premature since it is the first reading, but how does the waiver process work? With me being a new counselor, I just was curious how that process works if it just doesn't work for a particular house.
Right. Well, you know, we like to work with our customers. And so essentially if we receive a call that says this garbage can is out in plain sight, they're not making any effort to put it inside, beside, or behind, then we take that as a complaint and then we go to the site to check it out. We're going to talk to the property owner, and let's just assume that this individual is disabled and not able to either put it in their garage or maybe the terrain or something is reasonable that allows us to offer a waiver. We're going to just be able to go into our project file, probably return a letter that grants that person a waiver that says, we understand that you are not able to meet the current ordinance for these reasons, and then they can have it. We'll also follow up with the complainant. Okay.
One more follow-up.
Please.
One more follow-up for you.
Yeah.
On the section where it says the licensed commercial garbage hauler shall place the container in the appropriate location after collection. So if I store mine on the side, he or she has to put it on the side. If wherever, if I'm not home, they'll put it in front of my garage till I get home from work and put it inside. What happens? I'm sure we all got the same letter, but what happens if there's heavy snow and they can't get within 3 feet, or if there's unforeseen circumstances? I guess I wouldn't think you would go out and just ticket them because they're 5 feet from there. How is that standard?
We really only, if our landfill personnel goes out there, and we understand that it's the day of the collection, it's probably not going to be within 3 feet. The garbage hauler is going to, they'll do their best to get it close, but when the property owner gets home, they're going to return it to where they're at. But if that complaint comes in the day of, or maybe the next morning after their normal collection day, we're just going to knock on the door and say, put it in the appropriate spot. We're not. We do a number of these things, and it's more by education than by enforcement. The typical approach will be, we'll get a complaint, we'll go out and investigate, we'll do our best to reach the person if they're home. If not, we'll send them a letter, and then give them contact information to call us. We'll talk through the situation, give them a reasonable time. This isn't a health issue that has to probably be addressed within 72 hours, like some of those issues are. But once that reasonable time is expired, we're going to follow up, and then after that, it becomes that it escalates. But we do try to work with our customers just to make sure that they come into compliance based on education, as opposed to just showing up and writing them a ticket. That's not our approach.
So would it be unreasonable to say if when possible, or, I mean, if they're getting it as close as they can? I mean, you're obviously not going to ticket them, you're going to work with them, but to add something when possible, or I don't know if that would
Yeah.
be something that we could look at the next go-around, but
Okay.
just something to ponder, I guess.
Okay.
Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you. Mark, can you give us some context for this? I've been pretty public about I like the way that I like the language inconspicuous. I like that I don't have to drag it to the curb, where in some communities you're required to drag it to the curb, and that's even more of a concern for people with disabilities. I like the way the ordinance reads now. Can you give us context for why we might want to make this dramatic change that is such a requirement? You know, and I would just put it into my own context in that, you know, I have teenage kids and they can haul it wherever I want them to, but my mom doesn't. And so I need to haul it out for her the night before. And so it's going to be sitting out there for 24 hours until I get back the next day, right? So give us some context so that we can start to have this conversation a little more globally, because it's amazing. I mean, all of us are getting tons of response to this, and we need to understand why this is such a big deal.
No, that's fair. And we certainly didn't mean to bring on all that additional communication. We really looked at this, this makes this ordinance less restrictive. Remember, if we go back to what the definition of inconspicuous is, not readily noticeable. So not readily noticeable means that it shouldn't be in your front of your house unless it's the day of collection. And it just provides, if that essentially means that it's not readily noticeable when you drive by or walk by a property, that means that, okay, then where should it be? It should either be inside your garage, beside your house, or behind your structure, or in a screened area. And so really, I think from our standpoint, we just clarified it. Inconspicuous really means, it means the not readily noticeable. What that would mean today is even mine that are on the side of my house, that those are noticeable if you walk by. But now that's permissive because it's beside the structure. It's not in an screened area, but if someone had a screened area. So I think, honestly, we didn't mean to create, we tried to make sure this is less restrictive and clarified the issue. So does that make sense? When we really look at the definition of inconspicuous, I think when we understand what that is, it says that today, not readily noticeable, there's many garbage cans that are readily noticeable at various sizes, and we've seen those pictures where property owners that live near properties that continually either put them in the front of their house and never move them, and then there's multiple providers on a particular street, so then you'll see just it was clarified to help us manage the issue. So,
Councilor Jameson.
Yep.
Thank you. I think the word for the day is inconspicuous. That is
Yes.
the word for the day. I certainly have received a lot of those same communications, if you will, about this ordinance. It's funny how it works when you have a pool issue or, say, a big box store issue in your neighborhood, how people get riled up. But this has unleashed a fury of individuals across the entire community who are interested in where their garbage cans go and where their neighbors go. It's interesting how that unfolds, and I agree. You probably didn't have any intention of stirring the hornet's nest like this, but it appears you have. And the haulers are the ones who may be the ones in a financial position where they have an interest in this, and the homeowner has just got to maybe tweak the way they do things. But the haulers are the ones who are potentially at risk. And I think if this line about the licensed commercial garbage hauler shall place the containers in the appropriate location, that language I think is going to be a concern for them, and we'll probably hear it on the second reading. So I don't know that you're overly married to this language, but adding some flexibility within reason, I think, which was being expressed here within reason, I'll be pushing for as well, because I think it just needs that language and help. As long as you don't have any crux over that because I don't think that is what you're really trying to fix in your language change, right?
No, that's fair. And again, it comes back to on the day of the collection, we expect that the garbage hauler returns it fairly close now to where it was, and then the homeowner would just typically return it that same day. And so, again, less restrictive was our goal, and to be clear, because today it's a very restrictive ordinance. For it to be not readily noticeable, that's very restrictive. And today, with these proposed changes, makes it less restrictive and also provides the city a waiver process to address special circumstances. Today we don't have a waiver process. This would provide it.
Councilor Kiley.
Mark, I have two questions for you. The second bullet point states that containers should not be larger than 125 gallons. Is that for the benefit of the hauler?
No, it's for the benefit of, we had a picture of some residential houses that had, I don't know what size those cubic yard. Dave, give me a sense. Is it like a 1 to 3 yard container? Those one of those metal boxes that it takes a commercial truck to come and pick up, and that's not an appropriate use in a residential area. So we said each of the containers should be restricted to the 125, which is essentially the largest container you ever see around town for them. But for if someone were to ask for one of those commercial containers of 1 or 3 cubic yards. So it was to address that. We don't want one of these sort of mini dumpsters in front of someone's property. That's not reflective of a residential neighborhood.
And the second question is there a limitation on the number of containers?
No, not in this proposed language. It just says per property, each individual one cannot be greater than 125.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Erpenbach.
An observation, because this inconspicuous, you keep telling us it's more restrictive, but we have not enforced it. And I think that's the concern, is that now that we're bringing it all out, we're telling you very specific details, the 3 feet, and it's all stuff we've kind of known, nobody's enforced it. And now we're looking at it going, now they might enforce it. And that's as much the concern as anything, I think, coming from the public. At least that's kind of what I'm sensing.
And I can respect that, Counselor. We do when we get a complaint today, we go out, and this is the language that we have to make a judgment call on, and we just felt like it was striking that word because that's very noticeable, right? If it's readily noticeable, you drive by a property, it's either readily noticeable or not. If we can take that out and say it should either be inside, beside, or behind your structure, or in a screened-in area, that provides some good flexibility. So.
Right, and it doesn't say where beside it. It just says beside. I mean, your house and my house are very similar. I could stick it just right on the side. You could see it from the street, but it's still on the side.
That's right.
Done.
That's right. So it's less restrictive, right?
Councilor Jameson.
On the screened or in a screened or enclosed area, how would you define screened? I mean, a great bush that blocks it would still be a screening. How do you define screen?
I may defer to either Dave or Trent because if you're going to actually construct like a fence, there's screen or fence ordinances that you need to be in compliance with. If you're going to pick a similar building material as your house, say you had a sided house or a brick house, just as long as you don't violate a side yard setback or a front yard setback. But Dave, any additions on the screen? Or Trent? Okay. From our perspective, again, we're going to be reasonable. If somebody plants a good bush, that's a screen to me. And so we're going to make those kind of calls. But again, we're trying to address the violators that are out in full view that today are violating this current ordinance. We've tried to make this ordinance easier to understand and less restrictive. But we understand that there's questions, and so if you'd like to move this to a date in July, we're supportive of that.
Mr. Chair. On that note, I would move, and I'm going to change the wording that's on the agenda. I'm going to move to set the date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 1st, 2014 at 7 p.m. for item 20.
Okay, we have a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 1st, 2014 at 7 p.m. I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Staggers. Comment. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Zerpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
That is passed by a vote of 7-0. Item 21, please.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 51, Utility Rates and Charges, Subchapter Storm Drainage, and Subchapter Storm Water Drainage System Improvement Cost Recovery.
All right, thank you. Well, we've certainly benefited from having good storm sewer and drainage systems here in the last month, as wet as it's been in Sioux Falls, but there's still much more to do. And so what we've done is we've sat down, we've looked at all the respective operational costs, which the key addition now is the additional costs that we'll see with maintaining the flood levy improvements and the new regulations that come with it, but also with the growth of the city back to make sure that we can keep up with growth as well. And so there's really two key revenue sources that come into the storm drainage fund that allows us to fund maintenance, studies in existing areas, upgrades in existing areas, but also matching pace with development. So the first is, this is the one utility that we are bringing forward a recommendation for 3 years of rate increases. And so the first slides that I'll show you is the storm drainage fee. That's the fee that's on your annual tax. And so a typical residential house today has a annual cost of $33.86. Our recommendation is for 2015 to raise that by $3.04. That's an annual increase. In 2016 to raise that $3.32. And in 2017 to raise it $3.60. That's the fee that every property owner in Sioux Falls pays. And then as development occurs, we've also taken a 3-year approach to raising platting fees. There's 2 key platting fees that are paid with this utility. The first one, the acronym of DSCR, is Drainage System Cost Recovery. This essentially pays if a developer needs to put in a pipe greater than 24 inches. We pay the gap, or the oversizing, if you will. This builds the large regional detention ponds and those associated fees. Today's platting fee for a single-family resident is highlighted. All the other respective planning zones are shown, but we just thought we would zone in on single-family residential platting fee per acre. Today it's just under $1,580, with an 8% increase for the respective next 3 years. They follow suit, and this is one of those key fees that we do take to IRAB, which is the Infrastructure Review and Advisory Board, and we did receive unanimous support to raise this platting fee, along with the next platting fee, which is the RDC, that's the Regional Detention Charge. And this is the platting fees that paid in, and then we go out and we purchase those large tracts of land that some of these new regional ponds can serve anywhere from 70 to, in some cases, 500 acres of development. So it's a lot more efficient way to manage your ponds and detention ponds than having every individual development build their own pond and then ultimately turn them over to the city. And so this has a very nominal increase, 2% per year. So today's platting fee for single-family zoning is $762.57. If you inflate that by 2% each year, those 3 respective platting fees would be as such for those respective years. And we'd ask for your support.
Questions for Mr. Cotter? Councilor Staggers.
Just to clarify, Mark, on the, let's see here. we should be adding up both of those plating fees. Is that right?
Which one, Counselor?
Well, I'm sorry, I lost my place here.
I've got it on the screen.
Yeah.
So this is the first plating fee.
And then we also add the
RDC, which is the Regional Detention Fund.
Right.
Yeah.
So in reality, we should be adding the numbers in both of those slides.
That's correct. This plating fee is recommended to go up 8% per year, and the other one is recommended to go up 2% per year. Yep.
Okay. Other questions? Councilor Jameson.
On the individual homes, that 33 to 36, I think it was, the individual drainage.
Oh, yes.
Right. Overall, throughout the entire city, how much money would that generate, that increase per year? The new money, I guess.
Dean, do you have that number?
Was there, maybe the reason is that a number you were looking for, or is it just an increase to get more money to help fund?
Oh, no, we did a very detailed model. You sat through an 80-slide presentation for all 5 utilities. The Infrastructure Review and Advisory Board sat through about 85 slides just on this utility, and we spent quality time, really good discussion, and then came back the next week and had more debate. So it's very detailed models. These are all cost of service utilities to support the rate increase. It's not arbitrary by any means.
Dean Borkart with Public Works. The drainage fee portion for 2015, additional revenue about $595,000, $658,000 in 2016, and $727,000 in 2017 with the additional rates.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Council, questions or a motion?
Move to set the hearing date.
I have a motion to set the second reading date for Tuesday, June 17th at 7 o'clock p.m. I need a second.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Anderson Jr., thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
That is passed by a vote of 7-0. Item number 22, please.
Item 22 is a first reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 51, Utility Rates and Charges, Subchapter General Provisions, and Subchapter Sewer.
All right, thank you.
Welcome back, Mr. Cotter.
Thank you. All right, for our last utility rate review tonight, this is a 2-year rate model to set the sanitary sewer rates for not only residential but all our customers for 2015 and 2016. This is our summary slide, so I'll take you through the full summary. Water reclamation, a typical family today has a bill of $27.35. This recommended rate increase of 6% would raise that bill by $1.63 per month to a new adjusted bill of $28.98. So as you look through the respective utilities and storm drainage fee, the 2015 rate reviews and recommended adjustments would be an additional $24.88 per customer for the year. Okay. We've also included slides that have the impact of the 6% to our commercial, domestic, industrial, and high-strength industrials. Again, nominal changes. We finally have gotten past these double-digit rate increases that we've been very accustomed to get the rates to where they need to be. The rates recommended for 2016 is a 5% rate increase. That would take that 2015 bill of $28.98, increase of $1.46 to a new adjusted bill of $30.44. For the 2016 rate review and recommended adjustments, it would be an additional cost in 2016 of $20.84 per month. I'm sorry, annually. Here's the respective rate increases for those customers. Again, if you're a residential customer, your bill comes in two. We've always adopted that the basic charge or the meter charge on water, for example, is very nominal compared to what you normally see, and it's all really based on usage. And then the other recommended fee adjustment that we have not done this for a significant long period of time. It's been a fee that we have about 10 to 15 of these per year. But in some of the old parts of town where we have clay tile sewers, it takes very specialized equipment. We've studied what amount of labor that takes, the bits and what have you, and we're recommending to change those sewer taps for 4 and 6 inches for those proposed charges in 15 and 16 respectively, to make that again a cost of service sewer tap on that with that specialized equipment. And that's the summary.
Questions? Motions?
Move to set the hearing date.
We have a motion to set the second reading for
June 17th.
Tuesday, June 17th. Second, please.
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Anderson Jr. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
That is passed by a vote of 7 to nothing. Item number 23, please.
Item 23 is a resolution approving the special assessment roll for construction of sidewalk on North Kiwanis Avenue from West 2nd Street to West 9th Street.
All righty. I believe we have Mr. Heavey coming up.
Sidewalk man.
I thought it was item number 24, but I guess I'm... All right, Chad Heavey with the Engineering Division of Public Works. This assessment is for sidewalk installed on the west side of Kiwanis Avenue during the 2013 reconstruction project. Prior to construction, the majority of the properties between 2nd Street and 7th Street did not have sidewalk adjacent to their property. South Dakota Codified Law 946 allows the governing body to require the adjoining property owner to construct or repair sidewalks. It also allows the governing body by resolution to have the work completed by a contract and the costs assessed to the abutting property. Chapter 96 of Sioux Falls ordinances requires the adjacent property owner to construct sidewalks. On March 5th of 2013, the City Council approved a resolution of necessity declaring the necessity to construct this sidewalk on Kiwanis Avenue and assess the adjoining properties. This resolution will assess 10 properties a total of $26,814.59. The assessments range from $556.78 to $4,454.25. The estimated cost per front foot in the resolution was given as $24, and the actual cost per foot is $22.27. And engineering recommends approval.
All right. Since this is a resolution, we have public input. Anybody would like to speak to this? Council, I'll turn it over to you. Questions?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Erpenbach.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Staggers?
No.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
It's passed by a vote of 7 to nothing.
It's
Pardon me,
incorrect.
sir, 6 to 1.
I'm sorry, 6 to 1. Thank you again. I made a note of that, and I didn't write it down. Sorry about that, Councilor Staggers. Item number 23, please. 24.
Item 24 is a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards. And if you'd like, I can read those names for you.
Please.
Michael Luce and Lon Stroshine, both to the Airport Authority Board. Catherine Henning, Greg Nietzert, and Ryan Wright, all to the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Public comments? If none, I'll take a motion from the council.
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Anderson.
Motion by Councilor Erpenbach, second by Councilor Anderson. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Council, thank you for your time tonight. I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Erpenbach.
Second, Anderson.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.